Welcome, rare gems. People fear what they can't control, and they label what they don't understand. That's where your story begins. You never followed the usual path. You didn't play by their rules, chase their applause, or shrink yourself to make others feel comfortable. You moved in ways that couldn't be explained, and instead of leaning in to understand you, they chose the easier route. They called you dangerous. But here's the truth. You're not dangerous because you're reckless. You're dangerous because you're rare. You think for yourself. You protect your peace. You don't chase attention or bend just to be liked. That kind of self-possession, it shakes people. It threatens the ones who rely on predictability and control. They couldn't place you in their neat little boxes. You didn't perform the role they expected, so they gave you a name that made them feel safer. Dangerous. But that label says more about them than it does about you. Being unpredictable doesn't make you unstable. It makes you free, and that freedom is powerful. So own it. Own your quiet confidence. Own your deep instincts. Own the way you see through nonsense without even trying. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to stay grounded in your truth even when others can't handle it. Keep moving with intention. Keep trusting your gut. You weren't made to be predictable. You were made to be unforgettable, and that's exactly why they whisper about you when they think you're not listening. Let's get started, the rare gems. Number 1. You broke the script they were comfortable with. They expected you to act a certain way. Maybe they thought you'd be soft-spoken, agreeable, easy to figure out. But you weren't any of those things. You had your own way of thinking, your own rhythm, your own timing. You didn't wait to be told what to do. You trusted yourself. And that made people uncomfortable. See, most people walk through life playing roles they didn't even choose. They follow rules passed down from others, trying to fit into the mold. Be polite, be nice, don't question too much. But you weren't here for the performance. You tore the script in half and walked your own path. You didn't ask for permission to be real. You said what you meant, did what made sense to you, and stopped pretending to be okay with things that weren't. And because they couldn't predict your next move, they called you complicated, moody, too intense. But really they were just reacting to your clarity. People find comfort in labels. It helps them feel in control. So when you step outside their categories, they don't try to understand you, they try to contain you. If they can't explain you, they'll dismiss you. And if they can't dismiss you, they'll call you dangerous. But the truth is, you didn't break the script to cause problems. You broke it because it never fit you. You weren't born to follow their narrative. You were meant to write your own. Think about that time you said no when everyone expected you to say yes, or when you walked away from something that looked good on paper but felt wrong in your gut. That's what breaking the script looks like. So let them call you unpredictable. Let them misunderstand. You're not here to play a part. You're here to live fully, deeply, honestly, and that kind of freedom scares people who are still pretending. Number 2, you don't just survive the fire, you become it. That's the part they never saw coming. They thought the hard times would break you. They thought the silence meant you were folding under pressure, but you weren't. You were rebuilding, quietly, deeply, completely. See, most people panic when things fall apart. They rush to patch the cracks, to cover the damage, to pretend everything's fine. But you did something different. You stayed in the fire. You sat with the pain. You let it strip away the parts of you that weren't real. And that's where the shift happened. You didn't run from the heat. You let it burn away the lies, the people who only showed up when things were easy, the habits that kept you small. You let it all fall. And when the flames died down, what was left wasn't the old version of you. It was something stronger. This isn't about being fearless. This is about choosing growth even when it's brutal. It's about walking through the fire without asking anyone to carry you. It's about letting silence speak louder than defense. You didn't post your pain. You didn't beg to be seen. You healed behind the scenes. Think about that moment when you felt completely lost, like nothing made sense anymore. That wasn't the end. That was the ignition. And what rose from those ashes doesn't just survive, it stuns. Now they look at you and can't quite figure out what changed. They sense something, but they can't touch it. You carry fire in your eyes and peace in your walk. They can't label you anymore. They can't control you either. That's what scares them. You don't just come out of the storm. You become the storm. You are no longer trying to be understood. You're simply untouchable. Number 3, you became dangerous the day you stopped reacting. That was the turning point. The moment you realized not every comment needs a clap back, not every insult deserves your energy, and not every misunderstanding is your problem to fix. You didn't lose your voice. You just got tired of wasting it on people who were never listening. They used to get a reaction out of you. They could poke, prod, and push your buttons, and you'd fire back because you cared. You cared about being understood. You cared about fairness. You cared about clearing your name. But eventually, you saw it for what it was, a trap. They weren't looking for truth. They were looking for control. And when they saw they couldn't provoke you anymore, that's when the fear kicked in. Because now, they don't know where you stand. You're unreadable, unreachable, calm in a way that unsettles people who feed off chaos. You no longer explain yourself to be liked. You no longer chase closure from people who offered confusion. You don't need to be right out loud. You know what you know, and that peace, that calm certainty, it's louder than any argument you could ever make. Think about that time someone tried to start drama, and instead of jumping in, you just smiled and walked away. That wasn't weakness. That was power. Power rooted in self-control. And here's the real shift. Silence used to feel like surrender. Now it feels like strategy. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because some people don't deserve access to your mind anymore. You're done dancing for their approval. You're done performing for their comfort. And that quiet confidence? That's what makes you dangerous now. Not because you're violent, but because you're untouchable. Number 4, you don't need permission to think for yourself, and that right there makes you different. In a world where most people are looking around before they speak, just to make sure they're saying what everyone else wants to hear, you choose something else. You choose truth. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not popular, you're not afraid to question things, not to be difficult, not to stir the pot, but because your mind is your own. You don't just take information at face value. You ask why. You ask what's really going on here. You think beyond the surface. And that alone makes people uneasy. Most people have been trained to agree just to keep the peace, to stay quiet to avoid conflict, but you were never built for blind obedience. You're not afraid to say, "This doesn't sit right with me," even when everyone else is nodding along. That's not disrespect. That's clarity. That's courage. Think about those times in group settings where everyone was on board with a bad idea, maybe at work, maybe in your family. And while they were trying to impress each other, you were sitting there thinking, none of this makes sense. You didn't jump on the bandwagon. You asked questions that made people pause. You saw through the noise. That's what happens when you think for yourself. You're not following the crowd. You're following what's real. And yes, it might get lonely sometimes. People might call you difficult or hard to deal with, but deep down, they respect you, even the ones who pretend not to, because it takes strength to speak the truth when silence is safer. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to live in alignment with what you believe. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you rare. And that's why no one can predict you. You don't follow. You lead, even if it's only yourself. Number 5, you're allergic to fake harmony. You feel it instantly when something's off. The forced smiles, the small talk laced with tension, the unspoken issues that everyone dances around like they're invisible. Most people will smile through it, nod, pretend, but not you. You can't lie to yourself just to keep others comfortable. You've learned that pretending everything's fine doesn't fix anything. It just delays the explosion. You don't do surface-level peace if it means swallowing your truth. If the energy is off, you'll say it. If there's a problem, you'll face it. And if it means things fall apart, so be it. At least it's honest. You've probably been in situations where everyone wanted to keep it civil, even though nothing was real. Maybe in your family, maybe at work. You saw the cracks, the passive-aggressive comments, the emotional build-up sitting under everyone's polite faces. And while they were playing nice, you were sitting there thinking, why are we pretending? You'd rather have one uncomfortable conversation than live in a house built on lies. You'd rather lose fake connections than stay in relationships where your truth has to be muted. That's not being confrontational. That's being real. People might say you're intense, that you don't know how to just let things go. But the truth is, you've let a lot go. You've just stopped letting go of yourself in the process. Fake harmony is a trap. It looks peaceful on the outside, but it's chaos underneath. You want peace, yes, but real peace. The kind that's earned through honesty, not avoidance. The kind that can breathe. And if that makes others uncomfortable, that's not your problem to carry. You weren't built to be a puppet in someone else's play. You're here to live truthfully, even if it shakes the room. Because your peace isn't quiet. It's clean. Number 6, your intuition unnerves people. You don't need anyone to spell things out. You catch the tone beneath the words. You notice what they're avoiding. You feel when something is off, even if no one else sees it. And that makes people uneasy. It's not magic, it's just presence. While others are caught up in how they look or what they'll say next, you're locked in. You pay attention. You hear what's not being said. You notice the hesitation in their voice, the flicker in their eyes, the way they shift when the truth gets too close. And here's what really shakes them. You don't react. You don't call them out right away. You don't argue. You just see it, store it, and stay silent. That silence, that's what gets under their skin. Because it feels like you know more than they want you to. People are used to being able to hide behind charm, behind jokes, behind carefully chosen words. But you see past the front. You get to the root. That's a gift, but it's also a threat to anyone who's not being honest. Maybe you've been in a room where someone was talking like they had it all together, but you could feel the fear behind their confidence. Or someone tried to manipulate a situation with clever words, and you just sat there calmly seeing through it. No drama, no outburst, just awareness. That kind of intuition doesn't need to announce itself. It speaks through your presence. It's why people feel exposed around you even when you haven't said a word. They call it overthinking or too sensitive because they can't explain how you know what you know. But deep down, they respect it, even fear it. Because when you see that much without trying, they wonder what else you've already figured out. And that quiet awareness, that's your edge. Number 7. You can't be seduced by titles, fame, or popularity. None of that shiny stuff impresses you. It never has. You're not the type to be moved by how many followers someone has, or what letters come before or after their name. Flashy positions, loud recognition, public applause. None of it speaks to your soul. People find that confusing. They expect you to be drawn to the spotlight like everyone else. They expect you to chase validation, to crave approval, to want a seat at every table. But you've always known that some tables are expensive traps, and you'd rather eat alone than play pretend. You're not anti-success. You just define it differently. For you, success looks like peace of mind. It looks like sleeping well at night knowing you stayed true to yourself. It looks like choosing what feels right, not what looks good. Think about the times you were offered something that looked impressive on the outside but felt wrong inside. Maybe a job that came with status but no soul. Maybe a relationship that looked perfect online but was built on manipulation. You walked away, no second guessing. Because your worth doesn't come from being seen, it comes from being solid. And that's where the danger lies. People can't control someone who isn't desperate to be liked. They don't know how to manipulate someone who doesn't care about keeping up appearances. They can't trap you with false promises or shiny distractions. You're not trying to be important. You're trying to be free. And people who don't chase the crowd can't be led by it either. So yes, they may call you cold, distant, even arrogant. But that's only because they can't figure out what drives you. You're not powered by attention. You're powered by alignment. That makes you unshakable. That makes you untouchable. And that, right there, is what makes you dangerous. Number 8. You're not angry. You're just done explaining. You've reached a point where you no longer feel the need to defend who you are. You're not bitter. You're not holding grudges. You're just tired of repeating yourself to people who never really listened in the first place. There was a time when you used to break things down for others. Why you said no, why you distanced yourself, why you chose peace over noise. You explained your boundaries with patience, hoping they'd understand your side. But all it did was drain you. And now, you've stopped wasting your breath. It's not that you don't care, it's that you care too much about your energy to keep trying to prove yourself. People either get it or they don't, and you're finally okay with that. Your silence isn't a sign of defeat, it's a decision, a boundary, a quiet line drawn in the sand that says, I'm not going to argue with anyone about how I choose to live. Think about how freeing it is to say nothing when someone tries to guilt trip you, or twist your words, or paint you as cold for protecting your peace. Instead of reacting, you just nod, let them speak, and move on. That silence? That's not weakness. That's growth, because at some point you realize not everyone deserves access to your explanations. Some people just want to challenge your clarity to protect their confusion, and you're done giving them that power. Now your boundaries speak for you. Your actions speak louder than any back and forth ever could. You don't raise your voice, you just raise your standards. You're not angry. You're just rooted. And when people can't shake you, they'll try to provoke you. Let them. You've already left the conversation. Number 9. Your kindness has edges. You're not kind because you're trying to win people over. You're kind because you choose to be. And that's a powerful difference. It's not about being liked. It's not about being seen as the nice one. Your kindness is rooted in intention, not image. People often mistake quiet strength for passivity. They think just because you're calm, you'll tolerate anything. They assume your empathy means you'll never draw the line. But what they fail to realize is that your kindness has limits, and those limits are sharp. You're not afraid to walk away, even mid-sentence, if you sense disrespect. Not in a dramatic way, not to make a point, but with the quiet certainty of someone who knows their worth. You don't need to shout or slam doors. Your absence says everything. Think about those moments when someone tried to push your buttons, expecting you to bite your tongue just to keep things smooth. Instead, you gave them a calm, no, thank you, and never looked back. That wasn't weakness. That was self-respect. Your kindness isn't available on demand. It's not for people who expect it while offering nothing in return. It's not a mask you wear to be accepted. It's real. But it comes with boundaries. And that's what throws people off. They expect you to be soft in every direction. They don't know what to do when your warmth turns to stillness. They call you cold, guarded, difficult. But really, you're just done watering dead plants. You treat people with respect, but you don't beg for it back. You give with heart, but never at the cost of your own peace. So yes, you're kind. But don't mistake that for compliance. Your kindness has teeth. It's measured, intentional, and always ready to leave the moment it stops being honored. Number 10. You're self-correcting. You don't wait for someone to point out your flaws. You catch them yourself, quietly, honestly, without needing an audience or a round of applause. While most people only grow when they're exposed or called out, you evolve because you're constantly checking in with yourself. You don't need public accountability to make private changes. If something feels off in your behavior, your choices, your mindset, you deal with it. You don't need praise for doing the work. You don't post about it. You just get better, silently. This makes you different. Most people are addicted to external validation. They want to be seen improving. They want recognition for every step they take. But you're not driven by being seen. You're driven by being solid. You've probably had moments where you looked in the mirror and thought, that wasn't my best. Not because someone said anything, but because you know yourself. You replay the conversation in your head. You study your tone, your intentions, your energy. And without anyone else knowing, you make adjustments. That's strength most people never develop. You're not perfect, but you're accountable. And the difference is, you don't wait for the consequences to arrive before you make the correction. You hold yourself to a higher standard even when no one's watching. This quiet growth is powerful. It's what makes you grounded. It's what gives your presence weight. You're not trying to impress. You're trying to align. And that makes you trustworthy, not because you say all the right things, but because you're willing to check yourself when no one else is checking. That's rare. That's real. And that's why your growth sticks, because it's not a performance. It's a lifestyle. Number 11. You don't build empires on weak foundations. If it's built on lies, half-truths, shaky intentions, or fake connections, you'll walk away. No hesitation, no emotional scene. You'd rather start over from the ground up than spend your life patching cracks in something that was never solid to begin with. You've seen what happens when people try to make good enough work. They hold on to jobs that drain them, relationships that chip away at their identity, friendships built on convenience instead of truth, all to avoid starting over. But you don't fear the reset. You respect it. You understand that anything worth having should be able to stand on its own. Real trust, real love, real purpose. No shortcuts, no band-aids on bullet wounds. If the foundation is rotten, the structure will eventually collapse, and you don't have time to waste on things that aren't meant to last. Think about those moments when you walked away from situations others would have clung to. That job that looked perfect on paper but felt wrong in your spirit. That relationship that checked every box but drained your peace. You left without looking back, not because you didn't care, but because you did. People didn't get it. They called you picky, too intense, too demanding. But deep down, they wished they had your courage. They wished they could walk away from the almosts and the maybes and hold out for something real. You don't want perfect, you want honest, you want stable, you want something you can build on without fear of it falling apart when life gets heavy. And that mindset, that's rare, that's power. That's why people can't figure you out. You're not afraid to lose what's fake to make room for what's real. You're not chasing fast success. You're building something unshakable, and if that means rebuilding 10 times, so be it. You'll never settle for shaky. Number 12. You operate outside their emotional manipulation tactics. Guilt trips don't land, silent treatment doesn't shake you, and emotional games that once worked on others fall flat the moment they hit your energy. You've seen too much, felt too much, and learned the hard way how to spot manipulation dressed up as love, concern, or good intentions. They can't guilt you into saying yes when your soul is screaming no. They can't shame you for choosing yourself after years of self-abandonment. And they definitely can't gaslight you into thinking your reality is wrong just because it makes them uncomfortable. This doesn't mean you're cold. It means you've grown. It means you've developed an emotional filter that keeps the noise out and your sanity in. You now know the difference between genuine care and strategic control. And because you no longer fall for the emotional bait, they say you're heartless, distant, too guarded. But really, you're just aware. Think back to that person who tried to make you feel bad for setting a boundary. Remember how they twisted your no into selfishness. In the past, that might have worked. You'd feel guilty, question yourself, maybe even apologize for doing what was right for you. But now, you see the pattern. You walk away without flinching. And that's what scares them. You've taken back your emotional control. They can't access you the way they used to. You don't react the way they want. You don't bend, beg, or explain. You're not easily influenced because your emotions don't run wild for just anyone anymore. You've trained them, grounded them, protected them. So let them call you cold. Let them label you distant. It only proves what you already know. You're no longer available for manipulation. You've stepped outside the game, and from where you're standing, peace looks a whole lot better than approval. In final words. They didn't understand you, so they called you dangerous. But maybe being misunderstood is the price of being real in a world built on pretense. The truth is, you were never meant to be predictable. You weren't designed to move like everyone else, think like everyone else, or settle like everyone else. That's not rebellion, it's alignment. While the world handed out templates for how women should behave, what to accept, and when to stay quiet, you kept listening to your own voice. And that voice is your compass. It's why you trust your instincts more than popular opinion. It's why you walk away from noise instead of trying to compete with it. They called you dangerous not because you are, but because you broke their illusion of control. You don't need to be labeled to know who you are. You've done the inner work. You've faced the parts of yourself that others run from. You've learned how to protect your peace without building walls, how to care without being controlled, how to lead without needing followers. That's strength. That's elegance. That's power in its purest form. So don't shrink. Don't soften your truth to make others feel safer around your clarity. The world doesn't need more people who fit in. It needs more people who are brave enough to be fully themselves, even when it's uncomfortable. They couldn't predict you because you're not performing, you're living. And anyone who's truly awake will see that your danger isn't in your defiance, it's in your freedom. Own it, move with it. Let it remind you that some storms don't come to destroy, but to clear the path forward. You are that storm, you are that path, and no one has to understand it for it to be real. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.